Welcome to Raptor's Recon, and today's episode is Lucasfilm. These are not the excuses you are looking for. Yeah, there's a lot of excuses out there for why Solo is underperforming. I'm going to start out with, I'm going to read two articles today and do a review on both of them. One will give context to the other. And anyway, I hope you enjoy. Let's begin. The first article is from HollywoodReporter.com, and it's written by Pamela McClintock. Title is Solo will lose $50 million plus in first defeat for Disney's Star Wars empire. And here it goes. Lucasfilm's standalone Han Solo origin pick is faltering at the global box office, where it is expected to top out in the $400 million range. To borrow one of Han Solo's lines from Star Wars The Force Awakens, that's not how the Force works. It's an apt way to sum up the troubled performance of Solo: A Star Wars Story. In one of the biggest box office surprises in recent times, Solo is badly underperforming and will become the first of the Star Wars movies made by Disney and Lucasfilm to lose money. Wall Street analyst Barton Crockett says Solo will lose more than $50 million. Industry financing sources, however, say that figure could come in at $80 million or higher, although no one knows the exact terms of Disney's deals for home entertainment and television, among other ancillary revenues. Solo, directed by Ron Howard, isn't likely to gross much more than $400 million globally against a budget of at least $250 million and a major multi-million-dollar marketing spend. The movie lost major altitude in its second weekend of play to finish Sunday with a domestic total of $148.9 million and global cume of $264.2 million. Until now, Disney and Lucasfilm appeared unstoppable. Force Awakens, benefiting mightily from pent-up demand, earned $2.068 billion globally to rank as the number 3 title of all time, not adjusted for inflation. The standalone title, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, flew to $1.056 billion, while Star Wars The Last Jedi grossed $1.332 billion. Since expectations for any film in the Star Wars franchise are sizable, no one expected Solo to fly so low. This marks a tough return to movie reality for a Disney that had in recent years enjoyed a can't-miss mystique, Crockett wrote in his note to investors. In his own note to investors, analyst Doug Kreutz of Cohen & Company pins the blame on a lackluster marketing campaign rather than franchise fatigue. Disney can withstand any loss and isn't expected to take a write-down for the Solo shortfall. This year alone, Disney and Marvel's Black Panther and Avengers: Infinity War have generated hundreds of millions of dollars in profit for the studio. Black Panther has grossed $1.345 billion worldwide, including nearly $700 million domestically. Infinity War has grossed $1.966 billion globally and is poised to become the first summer film in history to cross the $2 billion mark. The all-time top 3 grossers are, not adjusted for inflation, Avatar, Titanic, and Force Awakens, which were all released in December. And the studio's next film, Pixar: The Incredibles 2, is tipped to be one of the biggest films of the summer. Disney has time to regroup before the next Star Wars movie, since Star Wars Episode 9, a follow-up to Force Awakens and Last Jedi, doesn't hit theaters until December 20th, 2019. So I read this article so that way you have some context to where we are right now as far as where Lucasfilm stands with Solo, Star Wars Story. So if you saw my previous video on the empty theater story, as well as some other projections, I did a little forecast there, and I said, look, if you look at the cost, just kind of like what they're saying here, the cost to produce this film is anywhere from $400 million to $500 million plus. So if it doesn't hit that mark, then it's going to take a loss. So projections were maybe this thing would make 600, 650, being generous, but as you can see, it's not even expected to break 400 million. I mean, that's insane for a Star Wars movie. So I like that the article just gives the facts. It kind of breaks down the comparisons of how this thing does. It points out a couple interesting things. One being the author doesn't believe it's fatigue, which I'm glad somebody finally came out and said that. There was a little bit of a lackluster marketing campaign. Obviously, my opinion is that they didn't have a lot of money to spend on marketing because they had all those reshoots. So yes, that had, I'm not going to say that didn't have a play in there, but as far as the other portion of marketing is selling this movie to the public, to the fans, it really wasn't sold because nobody really wanted this in the first place. But even even that said, if it was a good film, one that people really wanted to stand behind, people would be going out to see this in droves. The word of mouth would get out, and it's not happening. So what could sour folks this much? And so we'll talk about that a little bit later. You already know some of my opinions on that. But let's press on with the second article. This article comes from CNN Entertainment, and it's titled "Star Wars Should Resist Bowing to the Force of Its Most Vocal Fans." And it's written by Brian Lowry from CNN Entertainment. Disney and Lucasfilm are dealing with the first conspicuous setback of their 5-year-old corporate marriage, as Solo, a Star Wars story, has fallen far short of gargantuan box office expectations. While the studio ponders whether that requires adjusting course, a small, rebellious, and inordinately vocal quadrant of the fan community is delighting in and deriving an unfortunate message from those woes. Solo delivered less than 30 million in its second weekend, plummeting by nearly two-thirds from its less than stellar opening, bringing its total just shy of 150 million. For a mere mortal movie, that would be just fine, but it's a pallid addition to the Star Wars universe, which has shattered box office records and routinely amassed huge returns. The subplot to that, and it's an odd one, comes from Star Wars fans who see Solo's underwhelming results as vindication, a blow against the Disney empire and Lucasfilm chief Kathleen Kennedy, reinforced by internet echo chambers in the way intense political partisans find like-minded brethren online. They harbor what is almost certainly a malign vision of their numbers and how widely their passions are shared. All right, I'm going to pause right here for just a second. If you hear what this person's saying, and you take the context of the previous article and the situation where Solo is losing by record numbers. I mean, I couldn't even. I thought maybe this thing would top off at 600 million. It's not even getting close to that. So to say that this is some kind of internet echo chamber that a small group of people, a small group of like-minded brethren online are pushing forward, and we're, basically everybody who is in this to try and make Star Wars better and send a message is, we're all, drinking the Kool-Aid and kidding ourselves. I mean, that doesn't even pass the logic test. But let me continue here. Anyway, let's press on. As Vulture's Chris Lee noted in a piece back in February titled, "Why do some Star Wars fans want the Han Solo movie to flop?" This subset of the fan base responded negatively, an understatement there, to The Last Jedi, the most recent Star Wars sequel, and called for a Solo boycott to vent their displeasure. "Part of us wants this film to fail," Joe Vargas, host of the Angry Joe Show on YouTube, said at the time. "I was thinking maybe if it does bad, Disney will be smarter with how they do these future things." They have also lamented Disney's rapid expansion and strip mining of the galaxy George Lucas created. As writer Danny D. Placido put it in a Forbes commentary, Solo is Hollywood at its most cynical, squeezing every last drop of blood from an iconic character. Disclosure, my wife works for a division of Disney. Okay, fine, whatever. Within this circle, Kennedy and directors like Last Jedi's Rian Johnson are accused of spoiling Star Wars and not uncommonly ruining my childhood, quote unquote. Never mind that Solo is actually pretty good, or that Lucas, with the name Jar Jar Binks alone, made his own contributions to marring their young adulthood. When the blood starts to boil, sobriety and perspective tend to be early casualties. So you could already see where this guy's going. As Vulture noted, there's no real way to quantify how vast this portion of the Star Wars fan universe is. Indeed, with so many moving parts and variables to consider, it's difficult to grasp any clear message yet from Solo's underperformance, which of course hasn't deterred the deluge of web traffic-driven hot takes trying to do just that. Okay, here's another pause real quick. You're saying there's no way to quantify this? Look, even the folks who said that this movie was going to take a hit due to The Last Jedi and kind of the let's send the message, even at the most, the most brutal predictions could not have predicted what is going on here. So what does that tell you? I mean, yes, there are other factors going on. I understand that, but this guy is. Anyway, I'll talk about it in a minute. Anyway, Disney Lucasfilm, meanwhile, have little incentive to do anything but be respectful in addressing their most faithful consumers, since having people feel desperately invested in your product to the point of claiming a kind of ownership stake in it is the definition of a high-class problem. Why is that a problem? And why is it so hard? Okay, look, and this is just, look, I don't have anything against Disney or Lucasfilm, not one thing. But I will say this, as someone who's been, in organizations, you do not treat your customers, you do not treat the people you represent disrespectfully. And he even says it. They have little incentive to do anything but be respectful in addressing their most faithful consumers. Hey, if they had done that and been very respectful, I'm telling you, a lot of the problems that are going on right now wouldn't even be there. So, he's addressing something, here that is a problem and saying it's one of the things that, one of the only things they really need to do. They should have been doing that from the beginning. You treat your customers, you treat your people with respect, with courtesy, with common decency. You don't go out and troll them. You don't go out and attack them. You don't go out and put pictures on the internet saying, you're stupid, ha ha ha, and you're a fat white slob, this, that, and the other, and basically calling you racist, bigot, this, that, and the other. You don't say that to people. You don't say that to your customer. Who says that? Even if one of your customers is that, you don't say it, because you're not going to win anything from that. Even if one customer is like that, you don't got to say it. Just you say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, I appreciate your opinion, thank you, we'll take it into account, etc., etc. Treat people with decency. That would have staved off a lot of problems, in my opinion. All right, let me continue. That said, there's a slightly delusional quality to the victory lap being taken in comment sections and in online forums, an assumption that these fans have made a statement that will only further embolden such demands. It's certainly possible that disappointment surrounding The Last Jedi, a sentiment incidentally largely shared by this reviewer, triggered a backlash that played a major role in Solo's weak opening. But it's beyond naive to think a subsection of fans can dictate Disney's broader strategy, since the studio didn't plunk down $4 billion for Lucasfilm to let it sit idle, or allow a small mob with internet pitchforks to call the shots. All right, so right here is the crux of this article. And it is the, I hate to say it, but if this is really the mindset, then man, I don't want to say rest in peace Star Wars, but if this is the mindset going forward and it doesn't change, I don't get it. They have no incentive and they call us a small, they call the people who are being vocal a mob with pitchforks, calling the shots. Hey, it's not a mob, dude. I mean, it's people who are voicing criticisms, people who are saying, hey, this is what we want. We are the consumers. We want to buy your products. We want to experience what you are providing to us. We want to use that. We want to partake in that, okay? Whether it be through movies, through video games, through comic books, through regular novels, through the theme park coming out. We want to partake, and we want to have a voice in that. There is nothing wrong. The way that is written is, it's almost like saying, providing customer feedback and having people the customer demanding what they want, or not merely demanding, but voicing what they want because they're not getting it, is wrong. How is that wrong? It's not wrong anywhere. A good chef comes out and asks you how your meal was. Is your steak prepared the way that you wanted it? Is there anything else I can do for you, sir or ma'am? No, that's the way it is. We are, as fans, we are consumers and customers. And we're not happy. The Last Jedi was awful. And it was awful for a number of reasons, and it split the fandom. It is not what we wanted. Some people liked it, and then, okay, hey, I'm okay with that. I like some bad movies too. There's movies that I like that I know are bad, but I can acknowledge that they're bad. I just say, hey man, I'm entertained by it. It's just fine. I just find entertainment. I completely agree with you with what you're saying. I know this movie sucks in various ways, but I find maybe a sick pleasure in watching it. Maybe I just like the action. Maybe I just like the stupid comedy. There's a lot of movies like that we can all enjoy that we know are bad. We know they're just bad. But we can acknowledge that. But to not be able to see that with The Last Jedi, and not be able to see when a director wanted a divisiveness, that's his goal in life, was to make a movie that half the people hate and half the people love. Well, he did it, and he split the fandom. How it hasn't taken how many years already? And the fandom is like split and basically in utter revolt. You cannot tell me, look, I'm sorry, you can't say that this has nothing to do with the backlash from The Last Jedi. You cannot say that. That is, and you cannot tell me that backlash, you cannot minimize the backlash from that. And look, I'm being as respectful as I can be. But it doesn't pass the mustard test. It's not logical, okay? Because it would be logical if this thing pushed out 600 million like we thought. That would be, yes, a small amount of very vocal people did not like this movie or did not want it or had a very bad backlash from The Last Jedi. That would have been pretty good and representative. It wouldn't have broken 1 million. We would have all said, hey, But if you look at the numbers, my gosh, they're way worse. And I think the vocal minority, and I'll finish this article here in a second, but I think the vocal minority are the ones that are shilling for Disney and Lucasfilm. And I don't mean, I know that's a derogatory term, but they're making excuses, all right? That's why I called this, these are not the excuses you're looking for. No, everybody is making all these ridiculous claims and excuses for Disney and for Lucas. And those excuses are non-existent. They should be non-existent here. The numbers speak for themselves. Look at it. It's worse than any of our predictions. And I gave it a pretty stiff, I gave it a pretty hard look, especially when I started taking a look at the number of empty seats in theaters and kind of randomly selecting those and applying a little statistics to that. It's bad news. This is bad. And if you think it's just because of when it was released and blah blah blah, and it would have done better in December, Are you kidding me? Going up against Mary Poppins and whatever else is coming out in December? You really think it would have done better? No. And what was the excuse for Deadpool 2? Deadpool 2 came out on the heels of Avengers Infinity War. Deadpool 2 is a rated R movie, so less people can go see it. But more people went to see that than they can see Solo. And there's more opportunity for more people to go see Solo. More quote-unquote family-friendly, despite the pansexual nonsense that came out. How that doesn't pass the logic test. So anyway, I'm getting on a rant here. I don't want to extend this, but let me finish this article. As politicians have discovered, there are trade-offs involved in allowing the loudest and most belligerent voices, those prone to speaking in Sith-like absolutes, to define the terms of debate. Hearing and being sensitive to what various fans want makes sense, but bowing to the force of a vocal contingent, one that's perhaps a small minority, is a road fraught with peril. As Han Solo himself once said, it's not always possible to fly by committee. So, yes, I do agree. If you don't want to, there are always going to be like vocal extremes in any spectrum. But what I would argue is that Lucasfilm did this to themselves. And like I said, I love Lucasfilm. I love you. I love you, Disney. But you did it to yourselves. And I mean, I think it's just maybe too many people who are walking in step and have a certain mindset. Maybe there's not a good section of, maybe there's not a good enough diversity of within the employees that are working there. Maybe there's not enough of a good spectrum. Maybe it's all one, I guess, sector of either political, religious, whatever beliefs of whatever. I don't know. But I think there's a lot of groupthink going on there. Everything that this article accuses us of being, I really think that there should be a mirror lifted up and say, you know what, Lucasfilm needs to take a look at themselves and look at themselves in the mirror. Because I think ignoring the backlash is going to be more detrimental than listening. And I give the author credit saying that, yes, you need to listen to your customers, right? But then they go on to kind of like belittle the folks who are vocal. Hey, people are vocal because people love Star Wars, and Star Wars, you could say whatever, but for some people, Star Wars means a whole lot. And it's not just the movies, it is the beliefs, it is the mythos behind it, it is the ideals, it is the heroism and all that kind of stuff. Good versus evil. It's all of that stuff that is timeless, that means a lot to people. And when you go in there and you break the formula and you try to like do something, and it's not that you can't do something different. It's a big galaxy. You can do umpteen different things. Look, I'm not gonna lie. Look, I used to game master basically the role-playing game for Star Wars. I mean, for years. I've done this thing for years. I've done it for years. So I've come up with umpteen stories, and I've come up with umpteen characters, both as a player and as someone running the show. So I know you can come up with a lot of creative different things that does not bust Star Wars at its core. You can do it. It can be done. But right now, I don't know what's going on. It seems like instead of trying to push forward with a diverse cast, but within the context of Star Wars, it is like the story is getting lessened in order to push an agenda, and that's bad in of itself, and it leaves people with a bad taste in their mouth, because nobody wants to have something shoved in their face, especially if they maybe don't agree with it, or they just don't like stuff being shoved in our face. People don't like that. I don't like it when people come door to door to me to either sell a product or sell a belief or whatever. I don't like that necessarily. I'm not going to be rude to them. I just don't personally like that. So people don't like that in their movies or media. either. So, you got that. And then you have the company attacking fans and doing all that and basically insulting fans, calling us, racist and sexist. There are good people here. We are, the fan base that does not like what happened in The Last Jedi, who have a lot of respect for Mark Hamill and for George Lucas and what he created. We are not the dregs of society. I can tell you right now, I'm a responsible person. I've lived a responsible life and successful life. I do this channel stuff for fun and out of passion for some things that I love. We're not bad people, okay? And when you categorize us that way, this is going to be the reaction. You cannot attack the fans and the fandom and drive a wedge in it and think that there's not going to be any kind of backlash. And that's what we got here. So anyway, that's my opinion. Like I said, I think they're still grasping for excuses to kind of give themselves an out about what's going on. But if you look at the numbers, reference that first article, and even this one, now it's looking like Solo is going to take a loss. A loss. Who would have predicted that? That it was actually going to really take a loss overall. I know I wouldn't have. I thought it was going to be close. I thought they probably would make a little bit of profit, but it looks like it's going to bomb to the point where it's going to take a loss. If that's not a message, I don't know what is. And don't tell me that because it came after Deadpool or after Infinity Wars that's already been out for a little while, that was too stiff of competition for a Star Wars movie, when the Star Wars franchise normally was the franchise that other movies had to move their schedules around for. So don't give me that. That's garbage. Or fatigue, Star Wars fatigue to customers who routinely go see the movie 3 to 5 times if they don't like it, and 5 or more if they do. Give me a break. It's not fatigue either. It's not the fact that it was basically over a 4-day weekend. That was supposed to help it. That was supposed to help it make more money. And that was the forecast that came out early. Oh, this is going to break all kinds of records. You can't say that it was going to help it in one hand and then now use that as an excuse. So I would love to hear what you have to say. Please write down in the comments below. Let me know what you think and what your opinion of all of this excuse making is, and what you think the core reason for the losses that Solo's seeing right now. Leave those comments. Give me a like, share this, and subscribe. Anyway, appreciate your time. Have a great one.